we want to create an environment where they get to have fun playing basketball. And what's fun in basketball is obviously improving. Like, I don't think it is frivolous. I think it's literally like players enjoy being around other people. They enjoy belonging to a team, sure, all that. But players love to compete and they love to get better. And they love that a coach or a person notices that they get better. So those things go hand in hand with what I would consider fun in basketball. So everything that I've done from basically the last 30 years of coaching came from one conversation with one of the best players in Canada who I had a chance to coach as assistant coach. And he came up to me at one point in practice, and we were like number one ranked team in the country. We're a great college program. But he came up to me and said, "Hey, are we going to play any basketball today in practice?" And that really stuck with me. And I really said, like, what is he talking about? At first, I'm like taken aback because I'm going, look at us. I mean, he's playing for a great coach, he's, Hall of Famer, winning, blah, blah, blah. But he was like, yeah, we're not playing basketball. And I'm like, okay, let's dive into that. And my master's degree and a whole bunch of other opportunities gave me a chance to do that.
You are listening to the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast, transforming athletes into leaders on and off the court with host Coach Furtado. Coaches, are you ready to take your passion for coaching and turn it into a full-time career? I know the challenges firsthand, but the Make Money Coaching Sports program helped me take BTG basketball full-time. If you're tired of juggling coaching part-time and want to fully focus on doing what you love, this business accelerator will give you the tools and support to make it happen. Hit the link in the show notes below to learn more and start living your dream. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. Today, we're bringing you a transformative coach in the art of basketball development. If you're looking to truly maximize your player's potential, you're in the right place. Our guest is the founder of Basketball Immersion, the host of the Basketball Podcast and Basketball Immersion videos, Chris Oliver. He's an expert in basketball decision training, and his passion is sharing evidence-based coaching ideas that actually get results. He's all about improving player retention and making sure what you teach transfers to game performance. With over 23 years of coaching experience, a master's degree, and having traveled the globe learning from the best, he saw a critical gap in traditional training. That's why he's created basketball decision training, bridging skill development directly to real game application. He's currently leading basketball development at Sierra Canyon, consults for multiple NCAA D1 programs, and even coached a Canadian pro team to a gold medal at the prestigious Jones Cup. His expertise has influenced the NBA, the NCAA, high school, and club organizations worldwide. Get ready to learn from one of the most innovative minds in basketball. Let's welcome founder of Basketball Immersion, Chris Oliver.
Justin, awesome to be here. Thanks for that intro, and looking forward to having a great conversation about basketball coaching.
Absolutely. Me too. And so diving right in and talking about, obviously this is the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. So we go more than just the basketball X's and O's. And obviously, of course, we'll dive into some of the nitty gritty. And a lot of what we talk about today is transferable to other sports. But before we kind of get into that, I'd love for you to share and reshare, this is the second time you are on the podcast, why you made this switch from college coaching to consulting.
Well, for me, it was really an opportunity, an affordance, so to speak, since we'll speak about CLA later. But, it's an opportunity that came up because Basketball Immersion as a brand was started in 2014. And, I was at that point, by the time I made the decision, 17-year college coach. And I enjoyed that experience, especially being around the players and all the stuff that goes with that. But I just saw an opportunity to be able to do some things around the coach education space, which was probably at that point truly more my passion. And the business afforded me the opportunity to be able to try it full time. And as a family, we decided to move to the US. That kind of went hand in hand with leaving my college coaching job, brick and mortars job, and, work remote and work online. And it's worked out really well. And certainly being an entrepreneur, which I know a lot of people can relate to. I mean, it's both beautiful and frustrating and challenging and all those things that come with it. And I really enjoyed the challenge of that. And I've enjoyed the time freedom of being able to say yes to some things that I really want to do. For example, my role consulting with the NBA a little bit now, they contact me and say, hey, we need someone to go to Morocco. And I'm like, sure, of course I want to go to Morocco. And they say, wait a minute, it's in 2 weeks. Can you go? I know there's 3 days open in your schedule. Can you go? And it's like, yeah, that time freedom is pretty cool to be able to do that. And I'm grateful for everything and humbled for all these opportunities. But fortunately, the brand is going well enough. Certainly not, I'm not a Fortune 500 company, but at the end of the day, it's been able to afford us the opportunity to be able to live a good life and continue to share and grow.
And I know I feel like one of the things that has most likely been beneficial in that lifestyle is your ability to like train your daughter and be a part of your daughter's development. I think that's one of my favorite parts of following you is that you are showing her development and her training in public. And so can you talk about how being a dad has also helped you learn how to be a coach and like a podcaster and help coaches, be more effective with coaching players?
Well, thank you. And, my two daughters, 12 and 14 now, I mean, basically since their journey began, I've shared bits and pieces of it here and there, certainly conscious of not sharing too much of it, but it's been a blessing. I mean, think about that as a father having time freedom to be able to spend time with your kids and be able to kind of be immersed in their life. And really, I'd say I applied my to my parenting, my coaching, and whatever you want to call it, ecological dynamics or anything like that. Free range parenting to a certain extent. It's this ability to be able to say, okay, yeah, here's the problem. I'm going to give you a chance to explore the solution on your own before I give you my explicit instruction or my information. And really, I refer to this as the three E's in my teaching, which the first E is environment. So I'm trying to create an environment for them to explore. The second E is this idea of exploration, which is like instead of us starting from a place of telling them exactly what to do, and you can relate to this as a teacher, a parent, someone who's leading a company or something like that. Like, I don't know what's going to appear, but if I create an environment where they're motivated and they want to improve, then if I give them space to explore different problems or different types of tasks, then I want to give them the opportunity to figure it out on their own because it's amazing what they can come up with. And I think a lot of innovation comes from that place. A lot of creativity comes from that place, as opposed to starting with the last E, which is explicit instruction, which is telling them very specific, especially technical information. The example I share a lot online is this concept of my daughter doing a layup and going, if I teach my daughters very specifically how to shoot a layup before they've tried a layup, then they're going to do it that way. And to me, that's a limitation rather than an affordance in the sense that I'm limiting them to what I perceive a layup is rather than what they see as a layup, which is a solution to a situation where I need to find an open window to be able to shoot the ball at the rim. Do I care or does Justin care how they do that? And I think we do care somewhat too much about this technique part of it rather than saying, okay, go try it, go try and figure it out. And to this day, my youngest daughter especially does not do proper layups ever, but she almost always finds a solution relative to time and space and advantage and figuring out a solution. She goes off the wrong foot, the right foot, outside her body, inside of her body. Like, who cares? The point is to find a solution. And there's a simple example of kind of that. And I've tried to apply that to parenting and I've tried to apply that to kind of working with them in these one-on-one situations, which I'm sure we can talk about. But the challenges of that alone, trying to apply these constraint-led approach or whatnot, or ecological dynamics to a one-on-one workout are both challenging and rewarding as well. But, above all else, Justin, I'm just grateful to be their dad and be able to have an opportunity to see them love the game and see how good they can get at the game.
And I want to go there. So talking about the love of the game, and I think part of my, the intro was talking about retention. That's something that you talk about a lot is like wanting to get kids to continue to play the game. And I feel like when you're talking about the three E's, right? It's obviously there's a balance and traditional coaching is so focused on explicit instruction, like you talk about. You have to do a layup right, left, up, left, right, up, right? This is exactly how you do it. And then like everything ends up being so regimented. They lose that innovation, that creativity in the exploration process, and then they don't want to continue playing the sport. Can you talk about how the CLA and exploration and I still remember this from our first conversation when you talked about like we want our practices to be fun, not like ring around the rosy duck duck goose fun, but like opportunities to like actually like explore. So can you kind of continue to expand on that principle?
Well, let's think about this. Like a kid that comes to your practice probably has been told all day what to do by their parent, by their teacher, by the bus driver, by the whoever they engage with. Adults are always telling them what to do. And it's like, then they come to practice, and what you think they want to be told what to do at practice every single minute too? No, like we want to create an environment where they get to have fun playing basketball. And what's fun in basketball is obviously improving. Like, I don't think it is frivolous. I think it's literally like players enjoy being around other people. They enjoy belonging to a team, sure, all that. But players love to compete and they love to get better. And they love that a coach or a person notices that they get better. So those things go hand in hand with what I would consider fun in basketball. So everything that I've done from basically the last 30 years of coaching came from one conversation with one of the best players in Canada who I had a chance to coach as assistant coach. And he came up to me at one point in practice, and we were like number one ranked team in the country. We were a great college program. But he came up to me and said, "Hey, are we going to play any basketball today in practice?" And that really stuck with me. And I really said, like, what is he talking about? At first, I'm like taken aback because I'm going, look at us. I mean, he's playing for a great coach. He's, Hall of Famer, winning, blah, blah, blah. But he was like, yeah, we're not playing basketball. And I'm like, okay, let's dive into that. And my master's degree and a whole bunch of other opportunities gave me a chance to do that. But everything from there connects back to how can I make practice engaging and entertaining? Engaging and entertaining. Like those are goals for me. And think about it. Like, I know we all say this as coaches, like, oh, I don't want to be their last coach. Well, I truly don't want to be their last coach because I want to give them tools that help them get better so they have more fun playing basketball. So why do I emphasize, say, offensive development in terms of particularly around every time you catch the ball, your goal is to score? Well, that's not to develop selfishness. It's to develop the fact that, hey, you get to play basketball. And are you kidding me? Are those young players going to stay in the game if you tell them, hey, listen, all you're doing is screening and rebounding and you never get to shoot? Don't shoot. You don't know how to shoot. You don't have the technique to shoot. Well, it's like, what? Let's let them shoot first and develop the technique later, especially if we're talking about young level. And at the older level, I mean, man, it's just no fun to play basketball if you're just literally pigeonholed in this role. And I relate it, Justin, to many things, but playing hockey when I was younger, like at some point in both hockey and soccer, but hockey, I was going the farthest, probably potentially, somebody determined I was a defenseman in hockey and soccer. And that just deflated me completely. You mean like for the first part of my career in soccer and hockey, everyone played every position, which to me I agree with. And then at some point somebody determined I was a defenseman. And that deflated me. I said, really, I don't get to score anymore. I don't get to try and score anymore. And I think basketball is so unique in that sense that all five players get a chance to score. And I think we have to keep that joy in the game for players because as soon as you remove that joy, we're less likely to retain a player in the sport.
So here's a perfect example of actually we're having this conversation internally with our coaching staff, coming up this summer. We're going to Vegas, we're going to San Diego. We struggled this spring, right? We did let them explore quite a bit. And I still have this philosophy of wanting them to explore. And we're kind of having this conversation around roles. And I'm curious, so I'll give you context. Like we have, basically 12U through 17U. So I'm curious when do roles come into play, right? Obviously, probably more on the professional side. And then how do we build successful teams where, players understand their strengths, right? Instead of putting in probably roles like strengths, like some players probably bring more value to a team if they screen and rebound, like you talk about. Now, how do we make sure that it ends up they all complement each other, if that makes sense?
Makes sense. And let's qualify this conversation. Like, I'm not saying play in the absence of structure. And I think that's what you're saying too. It's like, yeah, we're going to let them explore, but at some point we've got to give them a structure, a template, whether it's a spacing template or some defensive understanding of how we're working as a team, some cohesion, some structure to that. But the goal is to go from structured to unstructured. So maybe you start unstructured, then you go structured, and then you want it to get less structured again, because then it becomes more conceptual. It becomes more based on decisions rather than what they've been told to do. So that's a huge part of evolving that aspect of it. The second thing in terms of specifically roles, look, I'm not anti roles, but I think roles is later. That's going towards high level, high school and college and in whatnot. That's when you're trying to sustain your career and be able to add value to a team and just be able to find any way to be valuable. But if we're talking about development, then I would talk about more realities than roles. And what's your reality? Well, your reality is you can't dribble very well. That's your reality. So I've got to find a way for you to be able to be successful. But you know what? Your reality is you can't dribble. So that's something that you can change. That's not something that's fixed. And that's the thing. So we can talk about these things relative to, my oldest daughter can shoot the crap out of the ball. That's a fixed skill. We don't need to develop that anymore. We're going to continue to work at it. We're going to continue to make it adaptable. But it's like, I want her to know, look, you can already shoot the ball. You don't have to think, oh, I shouldn't shoot the ball. You should shoot the ball every time you're open and every time you have an opportunity. And then that understanding helps afford her the opportunity, or that reality helps afford her the opportunity to say, okay, now we can work on developing, say, your dribble drive or your attacking closeouts, just different things like that. So some people are tall, some people are short. Those are realities. They're not strengths and weaknesses. They're just realities that we've got to optimize for a player. So we want to do those things while continuing to create a safe space for them to be able to develop these other things. And often that safety is just literally noticing and normalizing the fact that, hey, you're not good at this, but you can get better. And here's how you can get better. And you need to lead yourself in this player-led development aspect of that. And we can dive deeper into this, Justin, but I know one of the hardest things I'm sure you face in your program, and I've faced in my time, especially coaching AU, it's really hard to tell a young player nowadays, especially with their parents, that they're not good yet and that they can get better, right? Everyone just wants to be told they're good. And it's like, okay, that's fine. You are good. I'm not saying you're not good, but I'm saying you can be better. And if you want to be better, then you've got to actually get worse to get better in a way and become uncomfortable again. And that's really the hard part for most players, especially some of those early maturers.
I'd love to continue diving down this because I feel like that is the challenge. And that's what we talk about all the time, right? We're really big. One of our core principal values is continuous learning, getting better 1% better each day, right? You're not good at dribbling yet. We'll continue on this path. And so when we're building out and having these conversations, a lot of our practices are not just team concepts, not doing just 5-on-0, right? Like majority of our structure in our club, I think club basketball is all for development. And I'm even a JV coach. I think most of my being a JV coach, I'm supposed to develop them for varsity, right? I'm not in this place. I'd love for you to continue to either give me and those listening different ideas on how we can continue to help our athletes expand and produce and create new realities, so to speak.
Well, the number one way I think that I will share with you that you can try and others can try is this concept of okay, put the parents on your team, but also put them in the situation and say, listen, I mean, everyone tell me, what do you do for your living? There's a doctor, there's a lawyer, there's a teacher, there's a this. Every parent does something for a living. And you just gonna ask them okay, when you started, when you were first a doctor, did you have all the answers? Did you know everything? Okay, now you're still a lawyer. Does that mean you haven't tried to get better for the last 20 years as a lawyer? And put them in the shoes of saying, okay, now think about your 10-year-old and go look, the development's nonlinear. I don't know how they're going to develop. And both of your kids, or if you had two kids, which I do in this situation, both of them walked at different ages, at different points, right? It's nonlinear. So let's quit thinking that, okay, this is happening at this point, this is happening at this point, and this is happening at this point. That'd be much cleaner and easier for us. But look, this is why we try and frame it, which is the second thing is put the parents in the shoes of the players. The second thing is to be able to get players to understand this concept of nonlinear development, which is this idea of constantly telling them, hey, listen, that's okay. You're not good at this yet. And that's part of the learning process. Yet is part of the learning process. This is not something that, again, you're going to be good at this tomorrow. And I'll give you a quick example. I go do some kind of camps where players haven't played a lot of basketball before. And one of the first things, or the first thing I do after the initial thing, is get them to try and go 3 times between their legs. I know full well that if it's a lot of unskilled players, a lot of them cannot go 3 times between their legs. The number one reason they can't go between their legs, though, is because nobody's told them to try going 3 times between their legs. It's literally that. It's not because they can't do it. They just haven't tried it yet or haven't practiced it yet. And almost to a T, I say to them at some point throughout their struggle at the beginning is hey, you keep working at this. After 3 days, you'll be able to do it. And almost always they can do it because somebody created an environment for them to explore it and do it in a safe way where it's I'm not judging you. You can't do this yet. That's cool. So to be able to remove for the players the fact that, okay, I'm not comparing you. I'm not judging you. I'm not recruiting you. This is a safe space for you to explore and get better. And then sometimes we're going to disagree on different things, but I'm not going to present it as saying, hey, you're right, I'm wrong. I'm going to present it as saying, hey, try this, tell me how it feels. And I try and present things, especially around technique, around those things, where it's hopefully some type of like cue that can help them. But it's literally this concept of saying, hey, try this. When it comes to shooting, for example, Justin, we can dive deeper, but I said it to a kid the other day, and I was just like, hey, try shooting with your legs a little bit wider, right? And tell me how that feels. And then I give them a few reps of it, and I say, hey, did you feel anything? Okay, now go shoot with your legs together. Okay, what do you feel there? And it's just like helping them understand the difference. Like I can go to them and say, hey, get wider on your shot. Or I can say, hey, try it and tell me how it feels. Which one do you think is going to be more powerful in the long run? And to me, them arriving at the conclusion with you or making it seem like their idea is such a powerful part of what we're talking about in this conversation. Is I want them to be active participants in their learning, just like I want parents to be active participants in their learning. And we're all on the same team and we're all trying to help someone improve. And it connects back to what we talked about in the prior conversation, which is, you know what? Why do I want you to get more skilled? I want you to get more skilled because you have more fun playing basketball. The more skilled players have more solutions. So it's like, yeah, if you can't dribble yet, then you better develop your dribbling because you'll have more fun playing basketball. And I should create an environment with the parents or with themselves or with the player to be able to get better at dribbling because they'll have more fun. And that's really what it comes back to. All those conversations that we've had so far kind of connect with that.
Absolutely. I really like the idea of helping or framing our mind like as coaches that we want our athletes to be active participants in their learning process and building a learning environment. And I feel like that's something that I've been thinking about more in asking athletes questions like you said, like, does it feel good to shoot with a wide base, right, or your feet together? Then they're starting to build that awareness. Okay, when I shoot with my feet together, I'm not like LaMelo Ball. I can't shoot like this, right? I need a stronger and wider base. And so like that's, I feel like a big shift. And then you're also like at the end of the day, like most of our athletes that we get to work with, at least for us, they're not going to play college basketball. How can we make them more aware human beings and like how they interact in their environments? And then just always providing different reflection questions to help them become more aware.
Well, and you mentioned that already, reflection questions. It's a great way to do it. Like I understand, like it's really hard in America to sacrifice intensity. Like that's what I've learned. I go anywhere, any practice in America, and it's just like intensity above all else. And I get that. And I'm not saying don't compete. I'm not even saying as a coach, don't be a little bit of a competitive asshole. Like I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's okay to be competitive. It's okay to want to win. It's okay to push people to want to win because winning is part of development and striving to win is part of development, just like losing is a part of development. So those things are all positive. So sometimes you do have to solve problems for players because we don't have time. It's a sport and you got them twice a week or you got them like 4 times a week. Sometimes you have to solve problems for them faster because you can. But generally, we want to avoid doing that right away. So it's like, let them explore. And then if you find they're really struggling, that's where the 30 comes in with that explicit instruction. And I can say to a certain player, I can say, hey, Justin, hey, this is for you. Focus on this. And I think the other part that's informed us from kind of all this modern research around whether it's constraint-led approach, ecological dynamics, games approach back in the day, what it's really informed us of is the importance of the law of biological individuality, right? And that's such a key. And I'll be honest, one of the proudest parts of me doing my podcast now, I don't know what I am, over 350 episodes, and it's just how many coaches now are coming on there and shaping something as being a very individual thing that in the past we thought of very much a whole technique thing. And a closeout's an example, right? Like I've heard coaches come on there now, and I feel like, again, this has evolved from you and me and others in our space sharing these things and just going, how can you expect everyone to close out exactly the same way? Yeah, their bodies are different. And that's just like shooting. Like, how can you expect everyone to shoot the same? Their bodies are different. And that's really like without understanding what ecological dynamics or ecological psychology is, the word, don't get bogged down in the words. The words aren't the important thing. The concept is literally this, is that players have individual differences and we have to be able to afford them the opportunity to be themselves rather than try and be who you think they should be, especially when it comes to technique-based things. And shooting is a great example, right? You got to shoot with your elbow in. I used to get told that 25 years ago all the time, 30 years ago all the time. Like, What are you talking about? That's so uncomfortable when I shoot with my elbow in. There's actually tons of tension in my shoulder. And it's like somebody told me to move my feet to 11 o'clock. Oh, I moved my feet to 11 o'clock instead of facing my feet towards the rim. I just move them a little bit. And now my elbow's square to the rim. I was like, such an easy thing. And it's like somebody understood that I had to work with my body and not against my body because of somebody's perceived impression of what my technique should be. And I know it. I know it. My daughter, I'm telling you, she's a ridiculous shooter. She's so impressive shooting the ball. But if I post it online, and I know she gets this, internalizes it herself sometimes, goes, oh, does it look right? Or someone online will comment and say, oh, but this, and this. I'm like, I get it, but that's your perception of what technique is for you. Why is that the same for her, for Halliburton, or any shooter in the world? That's just, everyone's a little different. Let's account for that in the law of biological individuality.
Absolutely. I was literally about to say Halliburton right there because obviously he has a funky shot and he's highly effective. No one had the Pacers in the finals being up 2-1 against the Thunder. I didn't. I said Thunder. I said Thunder in 5. And so
well,
with
I mean, you'd be high on my list just to say of any NBA player I'd want to interview is him, to just ask, okay, what type of environment did you come from that nobody forced you to change? Right. And I'm sure some people tried to get him to change. I'm not saying that, but he had either the strength of his conviction or the strength of the conviction of people around him. And to me, that's one of the most impressive parts when you see some of these different players that are a little bit outliers. It's because somebody has afforded them opportunity to be an outlier, right? To be free, to be creative, whether it's passing, I think LaMelo Ball you referenced already, he's the most extreme example of just somebody that looks like he's playing at the playground when he's playing basketball. And I know we criticize that sometimes, and I get that. And there certainly maybe needs to be another component that goes with that. But damn, isn't that the most unbelievable thing? Don't we want all of our players to play like they're playing pickup? Because they'd be so relaxed, right? Because I know my best basketball was played when I wasn't coached after my career was over. Because I was relaxed. I was just playing free. I wasn't trying to please anyone. I was just trying to do the right things for myself and my teammates.
And that's the art of it. And I know you posted a video the other day of SGA talking about how he developed his finishing package, not from, different techniques. So can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that video?
Yeah, I got to interview Mark at All-Star Weekend, and Mark Degno, and it was just amazing to be able to sit there for 20 minutes. And really, I mean, I knew Mark was aligned. I had visited with OKC and him, and we've had some great conversations and different things. And I knew he was exploring all this stuff. And he had a chance. He had a laboratory, right? People, this is so important. He had a laboratory because he coached the G League team for like 6 years. So he had a chance to be able to kind of try some things and practice and experiment and do some different things that way. Anyways, independent of all that, he's aligned somewhat with what we're saying here, but he's also aligned with what Shea says, which is essentially, yeah, you know what? I didn't do a repetitive drill that taught me how to do this. There's no drill that taught me how to do this. What I did is I put myself constantly in basketball situations and I figured out solutions. And to me, that's really the epitome of what a basketball drill is. A basketball drill is a solution-based opportunity for players to be able to figure things out. And again, why can they not? Why can we not develop more Shays? Why can we not develop a passing big man like Jokic? Well, in America, we can't because we don't ever put tall players in situations where they actually catch the ball and need to make decisions, right? It's so guard dominant and so dribble drive dominant that any type of big, and I've seen this at the EYBL level on down, if we want bigs that can pass, we need to put bigs in situations where they're going to learn how to pass. And there's no other answer to that. It's not a passing drill. And that's essentially what Mark was saying about Shea. Hey, look, we could put him in a drill and he could repeat it over and over again, the solution that we say to repeat, or we could put him in a situation and just watch him figure it out. And there's definitely no better player in the world right now at figuring out solutions than he is off the dribble and finishing at the rim.
100%. And while we're kind of talking about development and developing, right, the dribble drive is very American right now, right? Drive, kick. With that being said, right, we are talking about a little bit on our conversation before we hit record is the difference between, especially we're thinking about youth basketball, and the difference between talent acquisition and talent development. I think obviously it's very hot right now AAU has become who can I grab, like and win a tournament, win a T-shirt, literally a T-shirt for a tournament that literally really doesn't matter, right? And you get to whatever you get to post on Instagram that your team won. But development has kind of gone by the wayside.
I told all the AU teams I was involved with at the beginning of this year, I said, after every tournament, get the whole group of players and the coaches in front of the banner and take a picture and post it online, regardless of what happened in the tournament. Who cares? Post the picture. People will think that you won because you posted the picture. We're not
Right.
saying we won. We're not saying we lost. We're just going to post the picture that we attended the tournament and go. And I'm like, that will please most of the parents. There's a picture of them in front of the banner. Cool. All right, let's get beyond that now, because it is absolutely this. I don't think, and I do think it's changed a lot at the upper levels of basketball, certainly the NBA, NCAA. People become more conscious of this, is that, sure, I can impact with my program with obviously recruiting players. For sure. That's a huge part of it. Recruiting players, sure. Recruit the best talent. That's a big thing. No question. However, you know where I can also improve my program quite a bit? Developing those players. Developing those players over a year. And my daughter's team, the U11 became U12 right this year. But they did something amazing that I'm so grateful that they agreed to do. And fortunately, Kiara Morrison is DeMar DeRozan's wife, and she's the one coaching, and she bought into all of this stuff, the game's approach, everything to do with constraints, ecological dynamics, all that. She's bought in completely. But what she agreed to do is to not press for the first few months of the season. And if you think about that for U11 girls, if we had pressed, we would have won more games. There's no question. We would have won more games because what's the biggest limitation at that age is handling pressure. So instead, we decided we're going to look at this as long-term development. And when we finally started pressing after Christmas, man, I'll tell you what, because our players had developed so much better understanding of, say, half-court principles, half-court understanding, even how to transition from the half-court to the full court. Think about that. When you press all the time and you turn people over, you're never learning how to transition full court. You're just working off turnovers and stuff. And that becomes a limitation of development. So to bring this home for all your listeners, like if you have a chance, like Justin does, like working with a program consistently over a period of time, I would almost periodize it in the sense that these 2 weeks, we're going to be a zone team. We're going to work versus zone and we're going to play zone. And we're going to play that in the tournament. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to be a press team. We're going to work versus press and we're going to press. And then the next, so on and so forth. And you pick these different things. And it's like, why do we want to do that? We want to do that because we don't want to develop one system of play. We want to, and we beat those teams that now have that system of play at the beginning of the year that beat us with that team, that MXB team. We beat them now because we don't have the system of play. Because what we want to be is adaptable, not repeatable. We want to be adaptable, not repeatable. So if Justin's going through his schedule now and he's going, okay, these 2 weeks and then these 2 weeks and then these 2 weeks, and then you come to 4 weeks and you say, okay, now everything is available to us. How much better are we going to be? One, we're able to adapt to whatever another team does against us. And two, we're able to adapt what we do to be able to create advantages. And I would apply that to offense. I'd say, okay, these 2 weeks, we're going to run this really pattern offense. These 2 weeks, we're not going to run any offense. We're not going to talk about it, just go play. This 2 weeks, we're going to try and shoot it in 7 seconds. Does not matter. We got to get a shot. We have a shot clock. Nobody else has a shot clock. Who cares? Like, think about these really crazy things. And if you have your parents on board and you have your players on board and you go, okay, but the last month or last 2 months of the season, we're going to do the best things that help us succeed and win. And that's a long-term approach. That's like a nonlinear approach to this. And I just think if people approach it more from that perspective, we can obviously make a bigger impact on basketball IQ development and adaptability. Because I think that's what we're saying. In this country, we don't lack technical skilled players. In fact, there's never been better basketball players anywhere in the world. Like, basketball is the best basketball players in the world are all in the US. And it's incredible, the skill level. But where do players catch up? Players catch up because of the basketball IQ development in the rest of the world. It's not like Serbia is producing 30 Jokic's. That's not what we're saying. But their players get a chance to be able to play out of more basketball situations. And that's what's being limited right now with very much on air trainer-led workouts where there's no other players on the floor and they're not connecting skills and decisions together and that type of thing. And that's where a coach can help kind of create that. Last thing, I know I feel like I'm on a rant here, but I'm really just like you said it. Do we really have to win this tournament? Like, does that really matter? We're going to try and win. Don't get me wrong. We're going to compete to win, but do we really need to win it? And it's, again, like, what's the value? Like, we played our first with my oldest daughter. We played with 6 players for a whole 3 months of club, 6 players only. And it was the best development experience in some ways, because what did you know? Number one, everyone was committed because they knew they had to be. And number two, we said, we're not going to let anyone come in the door. We're not going to let a revolving door come, no matter how much people want to play with us. And then we're going to create this situation where we know that you're going to play. And how do you get better at basketball? You got to play basketball. You got to play basketball.
100%. And there's a lot of wisdom in there. And so, kind of just to recap your points, like, instead of focusing, like, I think this is something, because we're a newer club, this is our second year doing it. We're still kind of building that curriculum, that philosophy. And I feel like I've kind of, like, I've been playing with it, right? Do we want to be a pack line club where we teach them how to gap up and close out and, and we want to play in transition, play fast. I like the idea, I feel like, of, creating adaptable athletes and teaching our athletes how to be adaptable, like 2 to 4 weeks. And those probably first 3 months where you're doing that with your team, it's going to be quote unquote rough, right? You won't win.
It was rough.
Probably,
Yeah,
you're going to be like, when you're in the half court, you might be turning the ball over left and right because your players don't know where to be. And, maybe you lack handling pressure. I just think that creates this opportunity for players to, again, be prepared to play at the high school basketball. So if they do go play for a coach that's a zone heavy coach or a man heavy coach, they'll be able to be adaptable and be prepared for that next level.
You nailed it. And just talking of that example, like, yeah, pack line for 2 weeks, full denial for 2 weeks. Like, let's do both, because you want to be adaptable anyways and go, hey, Justin, at some point we're going to play against a kid that's really good. We want to deny them. So now we're man and one. Like, it's like, and we can adapt to that because we've already done it. But yeah, it was painful. We struggled at times, but now I'll tell you the beauty of it is, and let's qualify that for the coaches. The practices were game based, right? This wasn't like going to practice and they were like 3-man weave and zigzag drill and memorize drills. Every practice these girls were a part of was basketball, playing basketball in some context. So that's the key part of it too. It wasn't limited to just game experience. They're getting practice game experience as well, because they're playing basketball in practice. And now I'll tell you, like, this tournament the past weekend, I was seeing players that at the beginning of the year, like, really couldn't pivot and make a decision. And now they were doing things so naturally and so effortlessly. And it didn't always work out. Don't get me wrong. Again, we're not perfect. We're not like, it's not an abundance of Division I. I'm not saying that. It's just literally, you can see the beauty of a player from improving from a decision-making standpoint. And the decision is more important than the technique. It is, because if that girl now knows how to pivot, find space, and then make a decision in that space, I don't care what technique she applied, she made, whether she drove it, she shot it, or she passed it, she made a decision that helped her and helped our team. And that's ultimately what we want to get to for all the players.
Right, that understanding the awareness of the game, right? Like, you can be the best, tween hezzy, but if you don't know when to do the tween hezzy, right? You're just a basketball robot. And that's what I always tell my coaches, like, building basketball players, not building basketball robots.
What a great example, because if you go to the majority of camps or player development sessions or, training sessions, and it's not a knock on trainers, I just think the good ones are really thinking ahead and figuring this stuff out now and getting ahead of actually what I'm doing, which is brilliant. Like, it's amazing, some of the adaptability of so many great trainers after they've learned this stuff. But it's like, okay, they're going to practice and all they're doing in these memorized moves at their training session. And it's like, great. Then they come to me and I say, okay, here's where you use it. Hey, look, you just spent an hour with your trainer doing these moves. Here's where you use one of them. And that's really our responsibility now as a coach, because they're doing these things and we want them to do these things because it saves me time. I don't have to do those things in practice. I can connect skills and decisions through basketball, which is awesome.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's more fun to play games throughout. So I just have a quick little question here. Like as far as like your practices go, like what percent do you think are, like 1v1 type games versus like small sided 2v2 versus like 5v5? Or is there, I'm sure there's some variation in art to the different type of practices.
Yeah, I mean, with my college team, it was probably again like I just to throw out a percentage, 90% 5-on-5, like which may seem crazy for some, but literally 90% 5-on-5. Because again, what do we got to do? We got to create the situation, we got to play the situation, we got to figure out solutions. That's the whole point of basketball, and that was great. For younger, certainly there's more of a blending of things to be able to pepper in different types of things. But I would say the majority of it is still like, okay, we're going to play basketball. We're going to play some version of basketball. And I'm a whole coach, part only if I need it. And I think that's a big change for coaches. If you really want to think about this stuff, again, forget about all the fancy words and forget about all the people telling you, no, you must never teach technique and all that stuff. No, no. I've coached basketball for 30 years. There's not one thing, but this is a better way because it empowers the players in their learning and creates active participants in their learning. There's no question, but it also creates this opportunity for them to be able to solve problems that they've never experienced before. And that's the whole goal of this is if I teach them just do this move, then I'm like, okay, great. Just this move. Well, what if they're doing this? Well, now you need this move too. Well, it's like, how about let's just make a decision. Relative principles of play, find space. Within that space, what's your advantage? Leverage that advantage. And then what type of shot are you going to shoot for you or our team? Pretty simple at the end of the day. Whatever you do around that doesn't matter as much as what you do with those principles of play or whatever Justin's principles of play or et cetera, anyone else's is.
That makes a lot of sense. And while we hit our, the 2 minute warning, and you kind of talk about, obviously there's no one right way to coach, right? And just the way me and you coach are going to be different because of our different personalities, our different communication styles. Regardless, this type of coaching it's about player centric, empowering them, asking them questions, giving them an opportunity to build that awareness, like we talked about. So the final 2 minutes for the coaches that are listening, and even some of the parents that are on this journey that are figuring out like how to coach in this more contemporary method. What are kind of your thoughts and maybe like evaluations that you would encourage a coach to have after each practice so they can keep getting better as a coach?
Well, it's easy to say, number one, be yourself, right? That we all say that as a coach, be yourself, be yourself. But I'm like, no, no, that's not quite good enough. Like to just be yourself is not good enough because it means you're not questioning yourself. So have an open mindedness about yourself, have a critical analysis about yourself, and really dive into what actually connects with a player versus what I think connects with a player. And honestly, you kind of nailed it there is like after every practice, if you can, do some type of peer analysis. That could be your assistant coaches. It could be with a parent that's watching. It could be something else where you just send some type of form. Maybe it could be a form. Maybe it could be a conversation. But just because, again, what you perceive works, some other people might perceive it doesn't work. And that critical analysis helps you come to a conclusion as opposed to just a conclusion that's based on survivorship bias. This is the way I was coached, or this worked for me. I was a great player, so this will work for you. Well, damn, you're still not using the original iPhone. What are you talking about? Like everything evolves in life. Like your doctor's not the same doctor they were 20 years ago. Thank God, right?
Right.
Their knowledge is updated. So have an open mindedness, but approach things from a critical analysis. You are not a good enough coach and you never will be. That type of humility is so important. And I am that. Like I'm never a good enough coach. I can always be better. And I always think about things and reflect on things and go, I could have done that better. So I know a lot of coaches talk about this, but I have a simple, like it's on my phone, a simple notes folder where I just constantly put in notes. And at some point, probably when I'm stuck on an airplane, mostly it happens, like I'll read back through them and kind of reflect on different things and have this reflection exercise. And then I think I said like peer analysis. So an assistant coach, parent feedback, some type of reflection exercise for yourself there. And then Jen, the 2 minute warning here to record yourself. Like you don't have to record yourself all the time, but you got to record yourself with audio and then listen. And I think this is one of the most painful things to do initially
Yes.
is to
Yes.
listen to yourself.
Right.
Listen to yourself coach a game, listen to yourself give a speech, listen to yourself communicate and practice. There will be nothing that heightens your awareness and your development more. And then I got to add one more thing. You don't have to go all in on all this. Pepper it in. Try something. Try a constraint-led drill. Try a small-sided game. Try playing basketball for a whole practice. And then see how you feel and see what you feel you're missing, and then come to conclusions. The problem is if you just stick where you were, you're going to stay where you were. So try some of this other stuff and then figure out where the balance is for you, and you'll be a better coach. And I guarantee your players will have a better experience.
I love that. That's it's really powerful, right? And I think one of the most important is I probably should be coaching or videoing myself a little bit more to like, because sometimes I'll be home and I'll think about what I said. I'm like, I should have said that. I needed to do this, right? So constantly, I feel like what's helped me get to where I am, from where we first had our conversation, is because I'm so critical of myself, and like I need to be better here. Like for me now, I'm learning how to be a leader of coaches, right? How to lead. We have coaches education calls and we give each other feedback. And I'm like, just because I'm the leader, I don't say, oh, you do a good job, this. No, tell me what I am struggling with, because that's how I get better. And so building that culture and just trying to get better, and having that open mind. So really appreciate you coming on today, Chris. I've got a couple of pages of notes. Really enjoy, obviously, all of your content. So for those that are listening, want to hear more of your content, want to maybe even learn more about your community, where can they find you and learn more about what you do?
Well, thank you for this conversation, and thank you for the great questions and everything that went with that. Stimulated my thinking. And, this is truly ecological too, Justin, that I don't know some of the answers I'm going to give until people ask the question. And that's beautiful. And that's really it. And I think most people can relate to that in some part of their life, whether it's their profession or something they've really studied and dove deep into. Until someone asks you a certain question, you don't know what answer. And as much as I could sit here and prepared a whole page of like talking points, man, it's much better when I just flow with you and we figure things out. So that's great. Twitter at bball immersion, Instagram at coach bball immersion. That's where Justin referenced. I share a lot of kind of videos of my daughters in their exploration and their development. But basketballimmersion.com. If you reach out to me, DM me, or reach out on our webpage, basketballimmersion.com. For any of Justin's listeners, you just DM me and I'll send you a promo code and get you a special kind of affordance to get you into the community because you listened to this and supported Justin. And then just the last thing, Justin, if I could challenge your listeners, hey, reach out to us. Let's tweet at us. Let's Instagram at us. Hit us both up with a question or a comment or a takeaway from this podcast. And if we start to do that more, we'll develop more of these communities of engagement and open-mindedness. So hopefully that'll happen as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, Chris. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend, coach, or parent you feel like would get value from this episode. It's our responsibility to impact as many parents and coaches who are the ones that are impacting our athletes. That's how we create a ripple effect. So thank you for being a part of our community, and we look forward to serving you all next week.